idea. For the consultant, one of the concerns that I have is because forces opposed to this have been so successful in derailing it, I think that there will probably be a sense, if we go further down this path, that there's a lot at stake, that people are waiting for, people have their eye on what's going on in any city that does this, because if a city does it successfully, then a lot of other cities might buck up their courage and at least be willing to look at it and have a more honest conversation about it. So from that standpoint, I do think it's very important that we be crossing our T's and dotting our I's, and somebody who has the specialized information experience with the organized collection statute, when we go into that phase, to make sure that everything is being done in a way that's not going to open up for legal challenges. I think that would be crucial. Certainly from reading the MPCA study, I've been struck by how the law can be perverted. I believe the example not too long ago was the city of Minneapolis, which has a hybrid system, part done by city crews, part done under a contract with a consortium of private haulers. And when they wanted to go out and have a more competitive process to get a better deal in the private market, those haulers went to court and said, no, you'd be changing your system, so you'll have to go through the organized collection statute in order to go to a more market-oriented process. So, when the case has arisen, and that's something that we obviously have to be worried about in structuring a contract, to not create something that effectively grants some kind of cartel power to one or more haulers. And so those are the kinds of pitfalls that if we get to that point of discussion, we want to have somebody that's pretty familiar with those details, and that's where I could see a consultant being worthwhile. My hope is that would be a lower cost than some of the numbers tossed around for the idea of doing a full-size study and retreading a lot of the ground done before. I would want to see it really focused on the nuts and bolts of the process, and again, working toward a plan that could be voted on up or down, that at least would make an effort to address all of the issues that the council brings up based on the feedback we've gotten from residents about what they want in their trash collection system. So the question that I guess I have, I don't know if it's for the rest of the council or for staff, is about the that initial amount of information, the existing studies and other cities' task forces and so forth. If we need to, how much time do we need to have to be digesting and talking about that before going to the meeting where you start the resolution of intent? Because this whole resolution of intent, despite what some will say, it's just the beginning of the process of getting into the details. And so if we're talking about multiple meetings to hash over all this stuff before then, I think I'm not really as enthused about that. So the question that I guess I would be asking is with the next stage as far as acting as a body, besides getting all this information and having a chance to review it ourselves, I don't even know, perhaps to have a workshop if there are questions or something to be directed to staff and to any other resources who could be brought in, if the next step is really to call the hearing to get that rolling. Although I think Kathy's right that early next year is obviously the earliest it could be done, because we've got a lot of budget and everything else going on between now and the end of December.
One question. Mr. Kaneko, could you speak just a little bit about, once we would pass a resolution of intent, if we went as fast as we could after that, how endangered a species of turtles would we be, using Kathy's lingo, by the time we got to the end?
Mayor, Council, if you went at a rabbit's pace, we'd have to take that out at least 160 days per the statute requirements. So that's the minimum, and then you can go out from there.
And most likely it would take longer than the minimum.
It's likely to take longer than that. That's at the point, and there's a couple things you have to do there, but the statute is very clear that you can't do it until that 160-day time period expires.
All right. Mr. Copeland?
Anyway, we have two communities right next door to us that already have organized hauling, North St. Paul and White Bear Lake. And it might make it a lot easier just to have someone come in from their community that knows the history, explain how they, what process they went through, and they'd probably give you some nuts and bolts of how it's working for them, rather than us hire a consultant.
Well, I would agree that that it would maybe be advantageous to bring in some people from those communities to talk, although I would think that we'd want them to talk more about how they run their system, how it's organized, because White Bear, they organized, I don't know, 30 years ago. In North St. Paul was in 1990 or 92.
15 years ago.
And so it's, to me, it wouldn't be so much the process that they use to organize, but what their program is at this point. And at least, like, my understanding is that North St. Paul is a community that does get some revenue out of their system. I have no idea about White Bear, but to understand what they're doing would certainly be helpful. And so if there's a staff person that's willing from their community, or an elected official who actually knows what they're doing, they could come and talk to us. Mr. Kaneko?
Mayor, Council, I misspoke. It's 180 days. I apologize. I said 160. It's actually 180.
All right.
So,
Well, no, but why not get somebody for free, you know?
Ms. Juneman?
Well, you kind of took part of what I was going to say. White Bear Lake, I have a fairly good long-term memory, but I don't remember when they did it because it was so long ago. And North St. Paul's was long enough ago and disastrously enough done. I think we want to start with where they are now. And I was talking about communities that have done it in the last 5 years because it's a whole different ballgame than it used to be. So those don't really play as to how they formatted, but what they're doing now would play. But then we need to find something that's slightly larger, because both of those are considerably smaller than we are. I know one of those is White Bear Township. I know they do it and they're bigger. So we have to have somebody closer to our population and / household count, just to get a better ballpark feel for how it goes at that level. And I'm not so sure I want or need to hear from the officials of those places, because I'm not so sure that I'd want to go do that to them and
That's why I
believe
said,
that they leave their opinion out of it, because I don't think that's possible.
that's why I said staff.
Yes.
So let's see if we can get a handle on the time frame question that the staff has asked us. I mean, I'm hearing that we would like some initial information brought back to us, which is really more a gathering of existing information that's out there, so we can, and we'll try to get a more complete list. But so it sounds like that we would like to do sometime early next year. And so we'd get that information and have some time to digest it. And is it then that it seems like we want to have a workshop in there to me. So we get that information, we look it over, we have a workshop, we talk about that information. And then it also seems to me that kind of at that workshop, we would then direct the staff to either prepare a resolution or not. Am I getting that kind of right? Sounds Kathy's saying that. And so then, if we go forward and we had a meeting where we had the option to adopt the resolution, and we did, then if we went as fast as we could, and I'm kind of getting, the feeling I'm getting from the council is that they kind of want to go about as fast as we can if we're going to do it. And so, but still, taking what Mr. Kaneko says and the reality of actually getting things done, I'm thinking that we would be lucky to get it done by the end of next year.
That was what I was thinking. Well, my opinion.
And so we'd have to push pretty hard to probably have it done about a year from now.
Yeah.
Mr. Nephew?
Well, I was just going to say that, I mean, from my perspective, it's not that I necessarily want to, have it done yesterday. It's that I'd like us to be on to the meat of what needs to be done, which is, first of all, us as a council delineating the specific goals and objectives that we would agree on, that we would want to see coming out of this process. And I think we could do that at that workshop after we have a chance to, we've gotten feedback from the public, we've gotten their wish lists and their pet peeves and so forth. So I think we probably are in a good position to come up with individual lists of what we would expect out of organized collection as goals. And so we don't need to have a long amount of time getting to that point. And then I want us to be in the meat of the actual attempting to work out a specific plan. And that's a phase where it can actually go faster, I think, than the 180 days if you got buy-in from haulers. We can't count on that happening, but if it takes a year to do it and to do it right, that's fine. But I'd like us to be on the point of focusing on the actual issues of implementation and trying to develop the plan to be voting on, rather than shadow boxing for 6 months ahead of any actual movement. So, yes, as fast as possible, but as long as it takes.
Okay. So, does everybody kind of agree with that sort of time frame assessment? So, it also, we had the question about, the staff's role, and do we want any advocates or other advocates, or I guess any advocates at all, because the staff isn't going to be advocates, they're going to be fact gatherers. And so, from what I'm hearing in the conversation, and we'll try to go through and try to make sure we're covering the questions we want answered, but certainly initially we are just saying that we'd like the staff to again be gathering this, what I'm viewing as readily available information. We wouldn't need any kind of other advocate involved in that type of process. And so, does that kind of answer that question, Mr. Nephew?
The one wrinkle that I would perhaps toss out there is the idea that when we have that workshop meeting to discuss the bundle of information that we've been given, it would be helpful to have people that we could query about it. And I would foremost say members of the ENRC to be present there. We might consider whether or not we wanted to invite any representatives of haulers. And again, it would be specifically about, for instance, how they work in cities where they have it and things of that sort. But I'm not sure that we really need, like opposing counsel on either side or something, make it into a courtroom drama.
Okay. And then kind of continuing on from what I heard, it sounded like that if we were to get to the point where we were to adopt a resolution with the intent to organize, then at that point, I guess from what I'm hearing, I'm thinking that then we're saying that we probably want to have a professional or a consultant get involved. And so that we have somebody who's going to make sure that whatever it is we're designing is following the rules, and that we cross the T's and dot the I's. And so, anyone disagree with that assessment of Kathy?
No, I don't disagree, but there's also a paragraph in our report, and I was going to ask about this anyway, was when we did the recycling contract, there was someone available through Ramsey County Technical Assistance to help us with that, so that's possibly somebody we could pull in
Yes.
at the point where once we decide whether we are or not, if we're moving forward, that person could possibly come and help us with getting our hands around how much can be done in-house and what we might need a consultant for even, because they do those kinds of things.
Okay. Mr. Nephew?
Wasn't there a gentleman from Ramsey County at one of our workshops about this summer?
Yes.
If that's actually the perfect kind of person that I'm thinking about in terms of somebody to be able to ask about some of the details, in addition to staff for that initial workshop. Or it's not really initial, but.
And you guys know what he's talking about? The person?
Mayor, council, yeah, in fact, there's somebody here this evening from Ramsey County as well. So
Super.
We're staffed, and Sean has been working real hard on that too. So.
Okay. So just to make clear, what process does this council want to follow? So we have this initial gathering of information